Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Outside Insider podcast here on Philly Sports Network with myself, Liam Jenkins. You know the score by now. All things Eagles related, wrapped up, put into a ball and then given to you as a free McDonald's Happy Toy meal. You can catch this podcast just about everywhere. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and I've even heard that if you go into your old Game Boy Color and blow into the Game Boy as if the cartridge you had wasn't going to work, that a magic cartridge comes up with my face on it. It is this special. You are part of a unique experience. And I would ask you, if you're on YouTube, if you're one of those hundreds of people that consume this content on YouTube, there's a link in the description, not the merch one, we'll get to that later, but you can go to iTunes, leave a rating, hit 5 stars, hit subscribe if it's your thing. If you're not yet subscribed, that is the best way to support this podcast, and it's the end of an era. I say an era, what I mean is I'm pretty sure I've exhausted season 5. Now, I didn't realise this podcast had seasons, if I'm brutally honest. I just kept hitting S5 for a while because all the other years were S1, 2, 3 and 4. And now, as we get towards a new season, I think it's time that we bury season 5. We have had some highs, we've had some lows. We've had Michael Lombardi on the show. We've made some new friends in Elliott Shaw Parks. We have had the rise of what I would say is LJ's voice being slandered on the Art of the Take podcast, where not even I can go as high as some of those impressions. And now we're entering a new dawn, where the giveaways are bigger and better than ever, where hopefully we can get some guests. So we're going to send season 5 off into the sunset as if, you know, we're going to bury Boromir, although he was shipped away on a boat, so maybe we're doing that. But we have got some important matters to get to. We've got Thank You Next, which is of course where I take your questions from social media. We of course have the answers to last week's Eagles blockbusters and the clues for this week's, and then we've got a feature which I don't want to give too much away about, but given that it is now the real depth of the off-season, I've called it, if an Eagles running back was a Pokemon, what Pokemon would they be? And I don't think you get that kind of content anywhere else, so stick around for that one. But we are going to start it off by going to the answers for last week's Eagles blockbusters. Now, if you're listening to this thinking, Eagles blockbusters? Liam, Blockbuster went out of business 20 years ago. Well, Jonathan, so did my love life. That is not what we're getting at here. Eagles Blockbusters is a weekly chance for you to win yourself some free Philly Sports Network merchandise. All you've got to do is guess 3 cryptic clues that I will give to you in due course. Email them not the clues to me because I've got the clues. Email the answers to me, phillysportsnetwork@gmail.com. The correct answers get put into a hat, spun around, flipped about, and the winner of said draw will win themselves a Philly Sports Network t-shirt. Sound good? Fantastic, because we are entering history. And it is a bit worrying. I never thought I would see a week where we don't have a single correct answer. I know, it is absolutely astonishing. After the success we have had a run, I've been bankrupt giving away t-shirts every single week, to the point where Connor and his glorious answer of Carlton Agadosi that has become legendary on this show, I sent his shirt to the wrong address and he had a go at me for it. So I'm hoping you guys are getting yours and I'm not sending yours to the wrong address either. But make sure that this week you are making me double check that I'm sending out a shirt, because you know what, I might even double up. I might even give away 2 if we're ending a season and I didn't give one this week. So let's shake it up. Here are the answers from last week if you did play along. If not, here's a gentle reminder of what you've been missing out on while you've been having a social life and not listening to this podcast, because, how I envy you. We're going to start with clue number 1, which was, this Detroit Pistons player had to formally bow to his new coach upon arrival. This Detroit Pistons player, Zaza Pachulia, had to bow to his new coach upon arrival. A curtsy, Zaza, curtsy, Zakert. This is why no one got it, because that was the most pathetic clue I've ever given while doing this, so apologies for that. The second one was Jacques Bauer's son went on holiday to a French city. That was, of course, Deshaun Jackson, eh? Jack's son, Deshaun, eh? How good was that? It doesn't get much better. We go from one extreme to the other. That might be my favourite one I've ever done. And then the third one was, oi, get out of my larder. That one was say what you see, not get out. It was my larder, Jordan, my larder. So now you know what you're setting yourself in for. Grab yourself a pen. Unless you're driving, don't do that because the ink's going to explode. You'll sit on it in your back pocket, it will explode over your pocket, and I'll get the blame, and before you know it, I'm buying replacement jeans. So, if you're driving, if you're on a flight, not if you're sleeping, but make sure you make a note. The timestamp is 5 minutes 14. Here are your clues for this week's bumper special. 2 shirts up for grabs, Eagles blockbusters. Clue number 1. Quick, hurry, quick, get your camera. It's English centre-back John Stones. So quick, oh my god, hurry, get the camera. It's Eagles centre-back John... Eagles? Eagles don't have a centre-back. It's English centre-back John Stones. Say that 3rd time now. Quick, get your camera. It's English centre-back John Stones. Clue number 2. I want to fill up my car with gas, so I need to find a pump that's free. I want to fill up my car with gas, so I need to find a pump that's free. And clue number 3, a little hey, little ho, worry high, worry. I mean, I'm practically giving you a shirt here. I will go over the clues one more time. Quick, get your camera. It's English centre-back John Stones. Number 2, I want to fill up my car with gas, so I need to find a pump that's free. And number 3, little hey, little ho, worry high. Finish the sentence. If you think you've got it, and I sorely hope you do, and there are no Carlton Agadosi answers this week, email phillysportsnetwork@gmail.com, or you can tweet me at Liam Jenkins PSN, but do it via DM, they are open, because if you do it publicly or you leave it on YouTube, someone's gonna kick off, alright? Someone is gonna steal your thunder, enter the draw, and steal your shirt, and that, my friend, is not good enough. So now we move on to the second part of the show. It is a bit of a shorter show this week, purely because, you know, there isn't much to talk about. The only real notable news from the last 7 days was that Connor Barwin reportedly wants to rejoin the Eagles and has had a chat with Howie Roseman about it. And there's been some mixed opinions on whether or not Connor Barwin is a fit for this team, given the fact that his production dropped when he moved to defensive end, given his age, given his role in New York, yada, yada, yada. And there are 2 sides to every story. Like, half the people right now really would like to see Barwin back from a cultural perspective. The other half really, really don't, because they just see someone that's washed up, maybe lost a step, and isn't going to add tremendous value. And I'm on the fence with this, because firstly, you've got to acknowledge where this came from. It was an interview with Heavy.com, and it's very rare, very, very rare, that a player in an interview would go, yeah, I've spoke to this team, I really want to go to this team, where, you know, I know the role I want, I know everything I want, they said I can make a decision, I've got offers on the table, you know, I'm just saying, this to me sort of feels like, you know, when you're on a night out, it's a Liam analogy time, it's an LJ special, this is what you come for, alright, you're on a night out, and you see a friend, and they've just got out of a breakup, and you're like, oh dude, are you okay? Like, are you doing alright? I saw she's got a new man already. It's all over Instagram. This happened to him on Saturday night, believe it or not. He's like, yeah, it's cool, man. I got myself a little apartment now. Oh, I'm doing well at my job. I'm great. I am great. And I was like, okay, cool, man. Well, good for you. Keep your head up. You know, bigger things coming and everything if it wasn't meant to be. So, nah, it's mutual ending, man. Mutual ending. Don't you worry about it. He got thrown out 8 minutes later for fighting. Clearly not over it. 8 minutes later. Now, I would have tried to break it up, but my 38-inch vertical, my little gangly arms can only go so far. Talking of which, they have been to the gym once this week, which is once more than the last 365 days. So we really are making abundant progress here. But you don't vocalise how good you are in a position if you've just been cut by. It's very rare, having spoken to several players who are free agents, you know, whether it be, I'm not going to drop names here, but NFL or guys entering the NFL draft. Like, even when you're interviewing draft prospects, people very, very rarely will tell you teams they've heard from. Essentially, what usually happens is teams will send out almost like questionnaires to a player, or just sort of content for them to digest in the run up to the draft, and then come the calls of, hey, you're our guy, man. Just be ready in that 6th round when we come call it, and then they don't call. Like, that's kind of the way it works. But it's very rare that a player will say that in case it gets made common knowledge, and then there's a snowball effect that maybe other agents or other players see it, and yada yada. I don't know where yada 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 has come from, but it needs to stop. It needs to be cancelled now. So hearing Connor Barwin, a veteran, come out and say, yeah, I don't mean to brag, but I could be going with the Eagles, I'd like to go back there. It was a bit weird to me. Because it's not normal. It feels like there's probably more to that, and I can kind of get it. His role was massively marginalised in New York. He literally became the depth starter. So by saying, I will do anything, I will be that, but I know what the role they want me to have, I've spoken to Howie Roseman, I want to be an Eagle, to me, it's just putting that further. It's extending it one step further to say, hey, I am here, this is what I want. Maybe just trying to nudge them a little bit, just see if they can wake up those negotiations, maybe speed them up. But Barwin has been in Philadelphia. He was posting stuff on Instagram at Lincoln Financial Field, which apparently was just for a conference by the Green Sports Alliance. He then also accepted an award on July 4th in Philadelphia with Jason Kelce there. So you never know. But Barwin has been working out at Temple. He's been saying a lot of stuff, saying he wants to play for Philly. And again, him and Howie are talking. The other thing to note right here is he says, I might wait a week to camp, but that's as far as I'm going to wait. Other teams are going to be like, you better sign now or we're going somewhere else. That implies there are other teams. And again, it's trying to spice up that own market. It's talking himself up. I wouldn't be surprised if the market is a little bit quieter and he's kind of gone all in on Philly, who maybe aren't sure. I don't know. This, again, it is all speculative. But back to what this is really about, and that should the Eagles take a flyer on Connor Barwin. And I would say, yeah, absolutely. Now, Barwin spent 4 years with the Eagles before eventually becoming a cap casualty, and he matched his 2016 sack total of 5 when he went to the Rams 1 year later. Then he goes to New York, 32 years old at that point, and again, as said before, becomes that rotational piece. But a lot of people are looking at his numbers and saying, yeah, his sacks have gone down ever since he had that 14.5 sack year under Chip Kelly. Which I totally get, it's understandable, but we've also got to appreciate here that the Eagles aren't exactly inundated with depth. And it sounds silly, but Josh Sweat and Sharif Miller both have concerns of their own. Miller, as we know, is fairly one-dimensional, and Josh Sweat has still got a lot to prove. And I get you don't get that without opportunity. But they're also around 10 pound lighter than Barwin. And if you are going to go up against starting tackles, Miller, without that ball rushing prowess, like the minute that ball rush is negated, there's little, as of right now, that Miller brings to the table. Josh Sweat is a bit more of a wild card, a bit more powerful. But at least with Connor Barwin, it's proven. And no one's saying he's going to come in and suddenly displace Derek Barnett. He would be the edge 4 guy. He would probably play maybe 20 to 30% of snaps, maybe a little bit more. And until you get late into games where you can allow the likes of Sweat and Miller to develop, I don't see the problem having a guy on that team who can also help out at linebacker, who can also help out on special teams. It makes sense. If it's a veteran minimum deal, why not? Put it this way, if you're looking to marry someone right now, like unless you're married already, then skip this bit. But if you're going to marry someone, right, would you rather take a shot on some complete random person, you know, and start a date, go, right, I'm going to go on Tinder, get a date, go from there, and just hope she doesn't murder me in my sleep? Because, I mean, if I'm honest, that is the baseline for what I look for. Now, anything above that is a borderline accomplishment. Or do you go back to what you know? Like, if you've had a successful relationship, maybe it didn't work out because of, like, geographical location. Maybe one of you had to move for work, one of you went away. Maybe it was one of you had a kid and it was, oh, bit, you know, give it 10 years down the line when Johnny can go off to school, and maybe. But you go back to what you know, and the Eagles know Barwin, and Barwin knows the Eagles. And the fact that they go, oh, well, he's regressed, like, even in 2016, he still posted 6 sacks. The one thing I would concern is the Eagles do have this tendency to keep going back. Which is fantastic for my podcast about ex-girlfriends and, you know, always going backwards. But there does seem to be this habit. Deshaun Jackson, Vinnie Curry, could be Connor Barwin. The list goes on and on and on. When you look at some of the signings they've made over the last few years, especially fans who get besotted with the idea of LaShawn McCoy or Deshaun Jackson returning, it's interesting, but I feel like it's a two-way thing. But if you can get it on a veteran's minimum, where you're not expecting Barwin to go out and become the starter, it is just there for additional depth. It takes some of the weight load off of young guys who maybe aren't ready for that kind of workload just yet, who maybe need that extra development or could use the mentorship after practice. Then why not? It's a veteran's minimum deal. High culture guy, does a lot off the field for charity, could be a great, almost filling in for where Chris Long left off from that wholesome, nice guy, lead by example perspective as to how a person should be, not just a player. then I would take a flight. I don't see the problem. I think a lot of people are getting caught up on, is Conor Barwin just going to come in and start? Because no, he's not good enough. He's not getting sacked. It's like, dude, if you're 17-0 up in the third quarter, you don't want to be starting your first two defensive ends. Probably a bit too soon to be putting Miller and Swale there in case things get a little bit topsy-turvy. So let's just put Barwin out, couple of snaps, wait for a third and long, and then you bring out the big boys. Then you bring out those young guns. So that's my take on it, but I would love to know what you guys think. Be sure to drop your opinions down in the comments, unless you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, in which case you can't. But leave a nice review instead. That would be absolutely lovely. We are now going to come to my favourite part of the show, which, as you know, if you're a long-term listener, is Thank You Next. It is something I pride myself on. Being able to place Ariana Grande's iconic do-do-do-do music over your questions. And boy, do we have a lot of them. And by a lot, I mean 4. So we're going to get into them. We're going to kick things off with Mike Doug 123, one of the winners of Eagles Blockbusters. He's a winner. Be like Mike. Enter this week. Thank you. Next, Mike Douglas. Do you think the NFL season should be longer? I don't know. That's an interesting question in itself. I think you've got to factor in injuries and that kind of thing, because if they do it right now, what you have to bear in mind is that TV rights are ridiculous and players hate playing on Thursday, they hate playing on Monday, and it discombobulates, for lack of a better word, their schedule. It opens them up to, playing 2 games in a week with a lot of travel. They get fatigued and worn down a lot easier. If you can prove that injuries aren't going up every year, or certain injuries aren't going up every year, then fine. If you can make it out so you can take out those Monday and Thursday games and just have another, let's say, 4 weeks worth of football but on a Sunday, I would be all for it. However, I don't know how you would structure it, because the NFL would just make you play your division again, which, as much as Eagles fans love seeing them play the Cowboys, it's tricky. If they did it where you play one division from your own conference, one division from the opposite conference, and then your divisional games, absolutely be all for that. I think that is a very fair way to do it. You're not limited then to the strength of your division. A team like, let's say, the Miami Dolphins or the New York Jets have got no hope of getting absolutely anywhere so long as the Patriots exist. I think opening it up, broadening that scope of competition, absolutely, I would be 100% down for it if it is fair on the players, if there is enough momentum from the players to say, hey, we want this as well. I don't like the idea of expanding the playoff. I hate the NBA playoffs, because if you're in the top 50% of people, you get a reward at the end of the season, which is bollocks, for lack of a better word again. You look at the way the NBA, to come 8th place and get playoffs. Could you imagine that in English football? I know the top 6 in the Premier League get European football, Championship, it's playoffs, the top 2 go up automatically, and then you get the playoffs. But imagine if it was top 8 or top 10. If the top 10 teams went to the playoffs. It's stupid, because you end up with teams who shouldn't be there. And I understand the whole Cinderella aspect, but nah, keep the playoffs as they are. It's completely balanced enough as it is, but extend the regular season and maybe make it, just, I don't know, have some fun with it. Maybe make it go towards March, and then push the draft back a month, and then you don't have this weird lull. There'll be a constant cycle. From a marketing perspective, it's great, because then the season ends in what would be then March. By June, you've then got the draft. You get to July and August, it's OTA training camp. Maybe September starts pre-season and regular season. I think it'd just work better. That's a full calendar year of football then. Outside of that, thank you next, Rich_Laurie. Now, Rich, I think this is your first ever question on Thank You Next, so I hope you are sat there with a dazzling smile on your face. You have got Sin Cara as your avatar. I hope it's Sin Cara. If it's not, you're not going to have a smile anymore. But I liked him as a wrestler, and I like this question, Rich. He says, Eagles fans are the most like which Premier League fan base? I don't know. I would be more inclined to say they're like Charlton fans, because they kind of stick through thick and thin. Trying to find a Premier League team as of right now where the situation isn't similar but the fan base is just as diehard, it is quite difficult, because you can't take Manchester City because it's just plastic as anything. Manchester United moan, Arsenal moan. Tottenham, I think, have got a very nice fan base, very strong fan base. They're committed no matter what. Outside of that, like the further you go down the order, I don't know. If I'm honest, I would say Liverpool. I think Liverpool fans are one of the few remaining fan bases where there is a lot of history with the club, and there's no such thing as a casual Liverpool fan. In the same way, there's no such thing as a casual Eagles fan. You can have a very in-depth discussion about the team, with either. It's not like you can just go into a random pub and go, oh, support Liverpool. Oh, yeah, the boys, mate. Bloody love the boys there. They're doing really well. Oh, Mo Salah. Like, nah, it's rare to find that. So I think Liverpool probably fit it the best. But that's not to say there wouldn't be exceptions. So, thank you. Next, on to our next question. Geordie Fighter 14, who is a regular asking these questions, I hope he's got himself a nice little smile as well, says, who do you think will stand out next season? Ooh, that's a tricky one. I think a lot of eyes are under Sean Jackson right now, given the chemistry he has with Wentz, but I think offensively you won't see it. If you look at how long it took the Eagles last year to have a 100-yard receiving game, I don't think they're going to have a 1,000-yard receiver. I don't think they're going to have a 1,000-yard running back, given their rotation. Apart from Carson Wentz, which is basically a given. Like, if he does anything less than shine, it's disappointing. So, I think a star's going to come from defense. It has to. It simply has to. And I would put my money on it being a cornerback, because the focus on the fact this Eagles team was so shoddy in interceptions, allowed over 4,000, I think it was 4,300 yards last year, which ranked 25th in the NFL. It's got to be. They have to generate something at corner. I'm going to say Avonte Maddox. That would be my guess. A guy that has had a very strong rookie season, has done everything asked of him, has played in every spot asked of him, and has done so very well. And I think the Eagles have to find a way to get him on the field. They're aware of that. So that will be my aim. I think it's going to be Avonte Maddox. That will be the player to watch. So thank you. Next, our final question of the day. It comes from our most reliable questionnaire, Kuya2941. He is here every single week with the hashtag. No one else hashtags it. This guy gets it. He understands the T. He says, thank you. Next, I believe hamstring injuries praying up to the season for running backs is typically a sign of a down year. Do you see that in Sanders? And do you believe Howard will surprise people? I think he will. That is a tricky one to answer, because with Sanders, he's missed a lot of time. He's missed all of OTAs, and for a rookie, OTAs are really important. It's not just like training camp. It's like training camp is like going back to school, and there's first couple weeks where you put your name on your book and you get settled in, and maybe you've got a new teacher and she's gonna go, my name is Ellen, but you can call me Mrs. Schubert, and I'm gonna teach you how to do mathematics. I'm not sure what accent that was. Or why she's called Ellen Schubert, because that's German. Anyway, that's what it's like. For rookies, in your first day of school, how much more attentive are you in your first year of high school or college compared to when you're like a senior? As a senior, you stroll in, you sit down, you're man or woman spreading, we're not judging. I mean, I've had it on trains where women spread more, and my gangly 38-inch vertical legs are conjoined up in a cabin. I know this is off topic, it's a rant. I'm dreading flying to Philadelphia next month because my legs are so long, like they're gonna be like a cheese string. They'll be gangling everywhere, and they're like flagpoles. They really are, and they don't bend, and I end up in a crease that people spread all the time. Women and men. It's just stuff. Like, they put a bag down and I can't move my leg, or they'll put an iPad just smashing the case onto my lap. It's awful. It needs to change. I can't remember what my original point was. I did get a bit carried away there, which is understandable. However, it was back on Miles Sanders, wasn't it? Yeah, so Miles Sanders comes in, sits down. As a first-year guy, pen to paper, you're that much more attentive. You're writing down every little note. You're writing down Ellen Schubert's name with how she spells it, and the little corner of the right whiteboard, the date, the title. You're killing it. Whereas everyone else is like, nah, I'm just going to write the Suzuki S. I'm going to play noughts and crosses. Although, to be fair, with my school, it was writing out your FIFA Ultimate Team on the back page and asking your teacher if they thought Ruud van Nistelrooy should be a striker or not. So, you know, who knows? But I think that you're right, it is going to be a slight concern, because when he gets to training camp, given Josh Adams, Corey Clement, Boston Scott, Wendell Smallwood, all of those guys are going to be gunning for him. Like, they know they've just had their nose put out of joint, absolutely smacked out of joint, platonically thumpered out of joint by a swift right hand as a second round pick. You know, this isn't like a 6th round flyer. They believe in this guy. And with Jordan Howard already there for a year, the writing is on the wall and it smells of that awful spray paint. So they've got to get it off, and they're sponging it and they're scrubbing away so quickly. But is it going to be enough? I don't know. This is where it's going to hamper Sanders. If he does have to take that early setback where he's not getting as many rotational plays, maybe he's only getting a few carries a game, I don't know. I think it's certainly going to affect him. So we'll see when camp rolls around. Is he going to come out all guns blazing? Bearing in mind with Sanders, he has a lot less tread on the tyre because of the Saquon Barkley situation. He rarely saw the field throughout his first few years at Penn State, and that is going to massively pay into his favour. It's sort of like going on eBay and finding that the Motor Trend Truck of the Year 2018 and buying that instead of the Motor Trend Truck of the Year 2019, you know? It's not at all, actually, but what is this podcast without a mention of the 2018 Motor Trend Truck of the Year? That ends Thank You Next, and we're now down to the last part of the show, but before we get on to it, guys, a massive thank you for all your questions. If you want to submit them, at Liam Jenkins PSN, that is the place to do it. And before we get to the big finale, which is which Pokemon Eagles running backs would be, I did just want to say a massive thank you. I normally save these right for the end, but my passport has now been sent off. I did that last week after having to wait for photos to be countersigned and God knows what else. So it's all been sent off. I'm now waiting. I'm hoping that by the end of the month I'll get it back, which means I'll be in Philadelphia for August to September time, and I cannot wait. This has kind of been 5 years in the making. I give this speech a lot, but I made this website when I was 19 years old. I'm now 24. It's only just been my full-time job for just over 2 months now of doing podcasts and articles and videos and every single day and managing a team. And to know that over that time that I've earned your respect is probably the biggest thing that means the most to me, because that's all I tried. When I first started out, no one cared what I had to say. I think a lot of that still applies now, but there are people that do, and the fact that some people come to our website and it's their favourite website, or they view me or our writers or our videos as content where they want to go out of their way, they get excited to watch, that's all I ever wanted to do, because that's how I look up to people. And to be able to have that impact, to hopefully bring you closer to the team, to bring something different instead of a super serious Eagles podcast, to have fun with it, to, you know, I told you a lot that I changed the style of this podcast around, I wouldn't say July last year, and I changed it massively. I stopped being so uptight and statistical and analytical and just had fun. I wanted to have a laugh and make people smile, and just, you know, if having a bad day, they listen to this and they get a kick out of it. And, you know, it is self-deprecating, it is sarcastic, but it's just fun, and I'm being myself, and it is the most fun I've ever had doing podcasts. I love every second of it, and that's because of you guys. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, for taking time out of your busy lives to listen and read and watch whatever we put out. And I promise you, the second I get to Philadelphia, there will be a super big party. I'm going to go and give you a soppy speech in person, and hug all of you and give you all shirts and stuff. But that doesn't mean you can't enter Eagles Blockbusters, alright? That's the deal. With that in mind, we're going to get to our final bit of the show, which is something I know you're all waiting for. If running backs were Pokemon, which Pokemon would they be? I'm going to start here with Jordan Howard. Now think about Jordan Howard. What qualities does he have? He's aggressive. He's a grrr. He's a bowling running back. He's a bowling ball. He's someone that is between the tackles, doesn't really have much agility, not very finesse, but the guy is a powerful, a freight truck, a Euro Truck Simulator 2 level truck, a Motor Trend Truck of the Year, if you will. And now which Pokemon is the Motor Trend Truck of the Year? I'm going to go with Machamp. Or Machamp, whatever Americans call it. The big super wrestling dude with 4 arms. Because, you know, he's a rock type, which says a lot straight away. That's very important. But he just looks like an absolute behemoth. So we're going to go with Machamp. Now the next one gets interesting. Miles Sanders. What do you think of Miles Sanders? What do you think of his skill set? Is he a bit explosive? Is it fiery? When I think of Miles Sanders, I think electric. Yeah, I think electricity and currents and voltages and amplitude, right? I think Voltorb. A nice electric ball, which doesn't look like it can do much damage on surface, but boy, if you put that up against a sandy or a rock Pokemon, you are the fun you can have. Wait until you hit Thundershock with one of them, and it is all game over. So Miles Sanders is Voltorb. Corey Clement, I had fun with this one. I'm going to try and not laugh when I say it because God forbid someone from the Eagles listens to this podcast. Corey Clement is Diglett. Why? Because he has the move Dig, where he disappears and a moment later comes back out of nowhere with a super effective move and rinses you. That's Corey Clement. The guy disappears, he has injuries, he just goes off the radar, and out of nowhere, he has Super Bowl 52. He has a blinding rookie season. He comes out and then leads the Eagles and averages over like 5 yards a carry. That's Diglett. He doesn't look intimidating like, this guy. He's just going to go on the ground and get injured again. Oh, no, he's not. He's going to come back up and make you regret it. And that's Corey Clement. Wendell Small. The further I get down this list, the more I regret doing this. Wendell Smallwood. Just have a guess. What does Wendell Smallwood do well? Which Pokemon would Wendell... There's only 150 to choose. I know. It's a hard choice. Metapod. We're going to go with Metapod. Why? Because all it does is harden. Not like that. Alright? Not like that. You're filthy minded. It's disgusting. All Wendell Smallwood has done development-wise for the last 3 years is get tougher and run harder and lower his pads into contact as opposed to trying to evade it and spinning around like a Beyblade. All he's done is got tougher. I mean, yeah, is he catching the ball better? Yeah, but is it really that impactful to this Eagles backfield when you're going to have a back like Corey Clement, like Boston Scott, like... No. Wendell Smallwood is Metapod. There is nothing else he does well other than get harder and tougher. And eventually he might evolve and be that super big moon one, but until then, Metapod. And finally, Boston Scott. This is the one I have most fun with. Is Eevee. Right? Why? Because Eevee evolves into one of 4 different forms. Okay, hear me out. Fire, aka the return game. Water, aka the receiving game. What's the electric one called? Electrovee. It's not, but that one. Yeah? Rushing as an outside zone rusher. I don't know what the other one is, but I think it's water. Like Aqua V. Or whatever it's called. Jolteon? It's Jolteon. No, it's not. That's the electric one. It's a between the tackles back. Boston Scott is Eevee. Depending on where you put him, he's going to impact you differently. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Outside Insider podcast. I would urge you to comment your Pokemon equivalents for the Eagles running back positions, and maybe this will be an article. Maybe I'll go through every single player, all 90 of them, and give them a Pokemon. Or maybe I won't. Alright? I'll think about it. Let me know if you want to see it. But again, before we go, here are your clues for Eagles blockbusters. Make sure you write them down. Quick, get your camera. That's English centre-back John Stones. Number 2, I want to fill up my car with gas, so I need to get to a pump that's free. And number 3, little hey, little ho, worry high, worry blank. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, guys. Please hit subscribe if you're new to this podcast. It's always been a blast filming it. We've got plenty more where this has come from. I promise you, Season 6 is going to be fun. It's exactly the same as Season 5 with a different name. You can follow me on Twitter at Liam Jenkins PSN, phillysportsnetwork@gmail.com if you want to get in your clues for Eagles blockbusters. Thank you for lending me your ears. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you next time.